In this video, I'm going to share my recipe for homemade Hamburger Helper using Italian shells. This recipe is perfect for those who are seeking a quick and easy meal when they come home from work at the end of the day. And I'm going to start off by warming my large skillet on medium heat. Now, I tested this recipe using an electric stovetop. Assuming you use an electric stovetop as well, you would warm the skillet for around 5 to 7 minutes. The exact time will vary if you're using a gas or an induction stovetop. And then once the skillet is hot, you're going to add in your ground beef. Now in this video, I'm using 80-20 ground beef, and I'm using about a pound of the ground beef. Now I don't know who all shops at Kroger, but at the Kroger near my home, they only sell the 80-20 ground beef in a roll. They don't sell it in a package with the plastic wrap over it. So I had to make do with what was available, and I wasn't going to another grocery store, even though it's a pain in the rear end trying to smash the ground beef that's in the roll. But I managed to get it done, and we're just going to keep it moving. So now I'm just going to brown the ground beef, and assuming you're using an electric stovetop, it should take you around 10 to 15 minutes to do so. The time will vary if you're using a gas or an electric stovetop. And I'm going to hold off on seasoning the ground beef for now. We're going to do that later when we combine the other ingredients. So now I'm going to use my colander to drain the excess grease from the ground beef. There are some folks who like to keep that grease because they insist you're losing flavor if you drain that grease. I'm not one of those folks. In my opinion, the grease just makes the food taste greasy, but it's ultimately personal preference, whatever you choose to do. And another thing, I know I have some big spenders who are watching who like buying that fancy, expensive lean ground beef. Ain't no shame in my game. I'm a cheap behind. I'm going to go out and buy that 80-20 ground beef any day, every day, all day, and that's just me. But by all means, if you want to be bougie and buy that lean ground beef, be my guest. Just know if you do use the lean ground beef, there won't be nearly as much grease, so there may be no need to drain it. So what I just did is place the large skillet back onto the stovetop, and I'm going to transfer that ground beef back into the skillet. You want to ensure that the stovetop is off because now we're going to combine our other ingredients with the ground beef. And before adding that ground beef back to the skillet, you do want to be sure the skillet has cooled off somewhat. If you try adding that ground beef while the skillet's still hot, then you risk having the ground beef continue to cook and burn up. And I'm just using my spatula to spread around the ground beef and break it up. And then I'm going to add the next ingredient, which is 15 ounces of tomato sauce. Now, if you want to be an overachiever and make your own tomato sauce from scratch, by all means be my guest. But this is supposed to be a quick and easy recipe, which is why we're using canned tomato sauce. And now I'm adding 2 cups of unsalted beef broth. You can certainly use salted beef broth. You would just omit the salt that we're going to add later on. And once we get all of that broth in there, I'm going to move on to the next step. So I just took my spatula, and what I'm doing now is stirring everything together. And I'm stirring everything together until it's well combined before we move on to adding our next ingredient. And for this recipe, the next ingredient we're going to add is our pasta. So I'm using the small Italian shells, and we're just going to dump those into the skillet. And I'm using about 8 ounces of the small Italian shells. And once those shells are in there, you're just going to give them a good stir with the other ingredients until they're well combined. And then I'm going to move on to adding the seasonings. For this recipe, I'm adding iodized salt, garlic powder, onion powder, ground black pepper, dried basil, dried oregano, dried parsley, and paprika. And you can find the exact measurements for these seasonings linked in the description below. And now I'm going to use my spatula again to stir in all those seasonings I just added until they're well combined with the other ingredients. And then once that's done, we're going to move on to the next step in the process, which is heating up all of our ingredients. So I'm setting the stovetop burner on high heat, and I'm going to warm the skillet until everything in the skillet is boiling briskly. And this will allow an opportunity for the tomato sauce as well, the seasonings we added, to fully dissolve. And this should take around 5 minutes or so, irrespective of the type of stove that you're using. And then once everything is boiling briskly, you're going to take the spatula or whatever cooking utensil you're using and give everything a good stir to ensure that nothing is sticking. So once the ingredients are boiling and we're finished giving everything a good stir, we're going to reduce the heat on the stovetop burner. I'm going to set it to medium-low heat and let the ingredients simmer. And this will allow time for the noodles to fully cook, as well as allow for some of that excess liquid to evaporate. And at this point in the process, you're certainly more than welcome to adjust the seasonings or add any additional ingredients to this if you desire. It's entirely at your discretion. And you're going to want to cover the skillet as well while it's simmering. And the timing will depend on the type of stove that you're using. Again, I'm using an electric stove, so I let it simmer for around 15 minutes. That time may vary slightly if you're using a gas or induction stove top. And you do want to occasionally take the top off of the skillet and stir around the Hamburger Helper to ensure that it's not sticking, because that water or that liquid, believe it or not, will evaporate quickly. So I did skip ahead in this video, and at this point the Hamburger Helper has been simmering for around 15 minutes. So I removed the top from the skillet and I'm stirring it around once more to ensure that nothing's sticking, because we're preparing to add our next ingredients to this. Now, there are Hamburger Helper recipes that call for adding milk or even half and half. For my recipe, I call for 1/2 cup of heavy whipping cream. And the heavy whipping cream, it works for a couple of reasons. One, with the higher fat content, it makes for richer tasting Hamburger Helper. But also, as a result of the higher fat content, it's less likely to curdle compared to milk or even half and half. And once you finish pouring in that heavy whipping cream, you're just going to give it a good stir until it's well combined with the other ingredients. And once that's done, we're going to move on to adding our next ingredient, and that is 4 ounces of shredded sharp cheddar cheese. And again, this is supposed to be a quick and easy recipe, so I am using pre-shredded cheese. If you want to use freshly shredded cheese and you want to clean up a food processor or spend all day hand grating cheese, by all means be my guest. That's entirely up to you. But again, pre-shredded cheese is fine for this quick and easy recipe. And once you finish mixing in the sharp cheddar cheese, you're going to add in the next ingredient, which is 4 ounces of shredded mozzarella cheese. And yes, the mozzarella cheese is also pre-shredded and store-bought. And once that mozzarella cheese in there, just like before, you're going to mix it together with the other ingredients until it's well combined. Now, once the cheese has been fully incorporated, we're going to continue to let this simmer for an additional 2 to 3 minutes. And we're going to cover the skillet as well while it simmers. And we're going to do this for a couple reasons. One, this will allow time for the cheese to fully melt, but also this will help to remove that raw flavor in the heavy whipping cream. And once it's finished simmering, you can remove the top, give it one more good stir, and then you will just remove it from the heat, allow it to cool, and it is ready to serve. If there are any leftovers, you can store it in the refrigerator for up to 5 days. And then after 5 days, I would advise that you discard the Hamburger Helper, as it may no longer be safe to consume at that point. And there you have it. If you would like to see more of these recipes, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.